Well, he's passing out the papers. I'll just talk about revenue for a little bit. Because it's still in the beginning or the middle of February, it's kind of difficult to see if the revenue is going to go up or down. But one of the things that we can usually tell is if tuition from Dunbarton, for instance, would go up or down. We had projected 91, 92 students, and we are at +1 of the projection. So it's not going to make a big difference, and that's the MST student that we had talked about earlier. That's why I wanted to mention it, because there's that tie-in. There's Ray.
Okay. And again, revenues, as we get further along in the fiscal year, we're going to get a lot better feel for where we'll land revenue-wise and begin to plot those changes, introduce them to you each month now. This particular format, hopefully it's familiar to all of you. We began using it last year with our reviews that began in the March timeframe. On the right-hand side of the page, that's a depiction of the expenditure budget, and what we've done is to summarize all of the expenses down to the function level. You'll see a series of numbers, 1,100 for regular education, 1,200 for special education, et cetera, all the way down. That's our budget organization. The budget numbers themselves represent our operating budget for the current year, the 14-15 school year. That's where those numbers come from. The projected amounts are what we feel, or what is our best estimate at this point in time. So as taking a look at the top line for regular education, our projection is that we're going to spend 97.5% of the $15,816,000, or $15,421,000. It's a simple arithmetic calculation. If you look at the bottom lines, you'll see the total of the operating budget, what we expect to spend based on info that we have through the month of January. We're saying we're going to spend $37.6 million of our budget, or 98.1% of our total operating budget. Okay. Now, if we switch over and take a look at the left-hand side of the page again and look at the bottom block, this is our summary. For our revenue over collection, any pluses or minuses are going to show up there. These are the elements of our unreserved fund balance calculation. The second item that is included with unreserved funds are reserves that we've created and what we're going to be using those for. Right now, our best projection is that we'll have $720,000 worth of reserves. I'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute or two. And the third element of our unreserved calculation is an underspend on the expenditure budget. We'll see that we're looking at an underspend number of $716,000, and that is depicted over again on the right-hand side of the page. Right now, our total unreserved fund balance projection is $1,437,000. Now, there's some action that the board has taken already to be financed out of this unreserved fund balance position. First one, we might remember, is a $685,000 reserve that we've created for year 2 collective bargaining agreement costs. The intent, again, is to make year 2 a tax-neutral event, just as year 1 was. So that money has been created in a reserve. Recall that we also approved the installation of a brand-new propane boiler and burner system for Maple Avenue, which we were going to be paying out of unreserved funds. That's $125,000. That included the new boiler, the new burner, and the tank farm. We talked about financing way back at the beginning of the school year, $35,000 worth of playground improvements over at Mountain View Middle School. The board had kicked around the idea of spending $107,000 to implement the drainage study and actions that Stantec had recommended to us, again, back last November. board has not made a decision on that yet, but there is adequate money available to us should the board decide to go forward with that work. The last item, $300,000, again, was the placeholder that the board is looking at for this year's deposit into the 2.5% contingency fund. So what that is telling us is that $1,252,000 of the $1,437,000 available has been assigned or will be assigned to some sort of activity identified in that particular grouping of expenses. The board is also projecting, or is, and we have included in the town report for this year, $100,000 to be returned to the town in the way of tax relief. So if we take that $100,000 out of the remaining balance, that leaves us with about $85,000 worth of unassigned funds, or true unreserved fund balance that has not yet been assigned to any particular activity. This $85,000 compares to a number of about $3,800 that we were looking at back in December. So we're beginning to move in the right direction. And as we get closer to the end of the year and we begin to triangulate on both expenditure budget spending and revenue collection, this is how we'll be able to determine and project with more certainty as to where we'll be ending up with respect to our unreserved fund balance. So we'll be looking at this sheet once a month now as we go forward. And any questions? I'll take them from you now.
Doesn't look that way, Ray.
Good to go?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last A&F thing we had was the bus contract. It's, Mr. Allard had asked the question, whether or not, what the cameras did and what they didn't do. Do you wanna talk about that one, or do you
Yeah.
want, okay, so, did they each get one of these, Ray?
I will send them around. Yep.
We get some cool little black and white photos here about where the cameras are pointing and what they're gonna look at. And that's one of the pieces, because I think that's what everybody had an interest in. There's two pieces of this. We're gonna look at the costs of it, of just Keith's, and then there's another part, at a later part in the agenda, we'll talk about other things.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, we'll hang on. Someone else asked about, what happens when you get cars that go by, when you get the yellow lights and the red, especially when you get the red lights, and what happens, and if the drivers can catch license plate numbers, other things of that nature. Well, apparently, Mr. Stinson with the bus company is also interested in this kind of thing, and so he has worked with Ray and others to say, hey, Goffstown, do you want to be a pilot for us? And so, Ray, go ahead, tell us all about that cool stuff.
Okay.
You should get the kudos, because you did the work.
Our last discussion on the bus contract, again, we've all decided 3 years for a fixed contract term, 2 years as option years for years 4 and 5. We talked about a new camera system to be included and a new audio system to be included with the new contract period. The new camera system was going to give us a forward-looking look at the bus and a rearward-looking version of a recording history. We're also going to have a camera available to us looking outside, giving us a driver's view. And that driver's view camera would also show entry and exit from the bus. So as kids came in, that automatically flipped and began to look there. We also talked about a GPS system to be installed in our regular education buses, and we determined that the extra cost for those items was $3 per day per bus. And the board's position at that time was, our last meeting, was that was okay. We wanted to get a little bit more definition on the cost of the, it was $2 per day for both the camera system and the GPS. The board wanted a feel for, did we really want the GPS system included or not with our regular education transport?
What benefit would the GPS give us?
Where, other than to position where the bus is at any particular point in time, assuming a
Speed.
breakdown as an example, where do we get a replacement bus located within the 20-minute time frame that we have in our contract? If there were any issues that developed on the bus, an accident or what have you, we would have a way of pinpointing the location of that bus. That would be the benefit for a regular education transport. The special camera that Mr. Allard had asked us to investigate was to take a look at number plates for vehicles that would be disregarding the flashing red lights. Either vehicles approaching from the rear and passing a bus, overtaking a bus while it was stopped with lights flashing, and for that matter, vehicles approaching the bus, again, while stopped with flashing red lights. We needed a higher definition camera than what is currently proposed by STA in order to be able to capture license plate numbers. That's the piece that Dan had talked to. That would result in 2 additional cameras. They were going to be mounted outboard of the bus. One is forward-looking, one is rearward-looking, and they're a higher definition, which would be incorporated again with the same DVR system that we would be looking at for the audio and video recording as currently proposed.
Just to speak on that with the bus situation, vehicles passing buses, this afternoon, I was over in Manchester, and coming down the road, the bus had stopped, lights, the yellow lights went on, the red lights, and the stop arm came out, and this SUV went right through, right past the bus. Fortunately, I got the license plate number, and I called the Manchester Police Department on it.
So dangerous.
Oh, I mean, it wasn't even a divided highway. I mean, there's no, and that's just something that really gets me. And I think this is something that is long overdue. Long overdue.
Okay. So, can I jump back in?
Sure, I'm
Ben?
sorry,
You were
Ray.
all set? Okay. Again, the intent was, what is it gonna cost us for this extra camera system? And it turned out to be $1 per bus per day. As Dan had alluded to, the Goffstown Truck Center is become very interested in this particular camera setup and is volunteering to participate cost-wise with the Goffstown School District if we agree to pilot the system for them and with them. The adder would be not $1 a day, but 50 cents per day per bus for the balance of the year, and this would run over 3 years. So to get, or to have the ability to determine registration numbers or license plate numbers for cars overtaking or approaching and disregarding flashing red lights, it would cost us another $2,200 a year for our contract costs with Goffstown Truck, or $6,600 total for the 3-year period. So the decision and put to the board this evening is, if you are interested in the extra camera system, to look for offenders and to log offenders' license plate numbers on an as-required basis, we'll take your authorization and build it into the contract that we'll be negotiating with STA.
Does the bus company think this happens a lot? I mean, it sounds like
Yes.
they do, where they have interest.
It does. It does now. The current process involves a driver, and addition to their other responsibilities, watching
Right.
kids enter the bus, exit the bus, and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have to observe the car, either approaching or overtaking, manually write down a license plate number, and then pass that information back on to the terminal manager, who will report it to the police department. The driver is still going to have to take that particular action now, but all they have to do is to remember
The
that
time.
When it
there's
happened.
somebody that's offended, okay? And then they can go back into the video system and actually pick up the data from the media, the recording media. So, rather than trying to write down make, model, and license plate numbers, all they have to do is to remember an offense did occur, and they can go back and review.
Nice. I think if I had to choose between the two options that we talked about, I would rather do the cameras than the GPS. And I feel like there probably isn't a whole lot of ambiguity where a bus is, or maybe there's a cell phone available, there's some other way to achieve the means to the end we're trying to achieve through the GPS, as compared to this situation, which I think is a pretty decent safety risk. It sounds like it's happening a lot. And that's my 2 cents. Anybody else have anything?
The subcommittee has come, I believe, with a unanimous, I don't think we took a vote on it, but there was a unanimous thought that it would be worth the $2,200 to have the additional 2 high-resolution cameras pointing forward and backwards to look at license plates for offenders. I mean, I don't know if we need to put a stricter policy, or if this is only for the bus company themselves. We have access to the 4 tracks for the 4 cameras, and they have access to the 2 tracks with the police, I would presume.
Yep.
Because we don't need access to those other 2, but it's, if we are charged with trying to protect the children getting on and off buses that we pay for, $2,200 a year is, well worth the expenditure.
That makes sense.
Well, the example that Ben shared earlier, that's really the
Yeah.
only way that license plates are ever recorded. The driver simply can't
It's a
drive
lot
the
to do.
bus, take the plate down. Logistically, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So we would be reliant upon noble citizens to come forward with that
And
kind of
having-
information.
And having driven a bus with a load of students, you're right, that's one of the farthest things from your mind. You're more interested in making sure the kids get on and off safely, and that they cross, that there's nobody coming.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is an excellent idea.
Dan, I think your point about access and who has access to the video is an important one. And in fact, a little later in the agenda, when we talk about our policy for audio and video recording, we would need to find a way to separate that out, or to include perhaps some additional language within our policy.
Any other discussion on this?
Do you
Do we
need
need
a
a
motion
motion?
or something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we need a motion. I'd
We
like a
do.
motion on this.
Now, did we approve the cameras?
We approve the cameras.
We didn't approve the GPS.
Right.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we approve the additional 50 cents per day per bus for the 2 high-resolution cameras pointing forward and backwards to gain access to license plate numbers.
For that motion?
I'm wondering, Dan, if it wouldn't make sense to set the extra cost limit per bus at $2.50 per day. That covers both camera systems. It's going to cover the forward,
Oh, yeah, well,
rearward looking.
we would have to amend our previous motion, would we not? Because we already motioned the $2.
That was
We
actually the
did.
motion.
Right.
Right.
If you look at the
And-
minutes, that was
Oh, we
actually the
did?
motion.
So we're looking at
I
it.
didn't think we did. Okay.
Say that again,
If you look at the motion
the minutes?
in the previous minutes.
Yeah. It was in there. Yeah.
Keith had asked to have it looked at so that they can come and amend the motion.
Technically, in order to amend the motion, even though it says it there, we would have to reconsider it?
Wait, can we just go back, because what's in the minutes is based on the cameras that we've already adjusted it, we've already approved at $4 a day. We're simply moving to add these 2 additional cameras at a cost of 50 cents a day.
That's
So-
what these minutes say.
That's what Dan's motion was.
Right, my
Right,
motion for
so-
the additional 50 cents for the front rear, and let me amend that to say, to the intent to be inclusive of $2.50 a day for all cameras. That help?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
The GPS system was included
Was
in the
not.
motion. Okay. So I have a motion. I'm sorry, Dan, can you please just say it one more time?
Denise?
Well, you do have, the first one you said makes a motion for 50 cents per day per bus for the high-resolution cameras. However, you amended it to say the intent to be inclusive of the $2.50 for all cameras.
Yes, so if that can be all one motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an additional 50 cents for the other 2. You want me to restate the whole thing and start over?
That
Yeah,
would be-
'cause I
that'd be
actually
good.
think you need to reiterate, like,
Okay, let's
what
do it
your
again.
point is.
So
Are
my-
you
Right now,
looking?
here's what I think is going on, if a brief comment before we go. Right now, we already approved $2 for all the cameras, and I think that was pretty steady. Are you inferring that it's $2.50 for 6 and not an extra 50 cents for just the 2?
A grand total of $2.50 for the 6 cameras.
Right, but isn't it, if we do nothing right now, it's
It's
$2.
$2.
If we add 2 cameras, it's $2.50.
It's 50 cents.
For, it's 50 cents, which the motion was for 50 cents.
Right.
So I'm
All right, Dan, based on what your motion
Just one
is,
second.
Yeah.
I don't
we've
know.
just approved the minutes. The vote was the pricing for the GPS system and new multiple camera head digital units. So we did
It was all
approve-
$2.
No, $4 per bus per day.
It was.
So what
Oh.
you're looking to do
That's right.
is you are looking to amend that vote. You're looking for us to be voting on $2 a bus a day, plus the 50 cents, less the price for the GPS. That's what you're looking to do.
Right.
Correct.
GPS was.
So we did the $4 a day. It was broken down 2 plus 2.
Right.
Okay.
So what we want to do is just, we're not really amending the motion, because that's done and passed. Where it's an additional motion for an additional 50 cents for the whole project.
Okay.
And that's, unless Mr. Keith, because it was his idea, would like to make the motion.
Dan at this point is like, I'm done with this motion.
Well, there's so many, I mean,
Confusion this evening.
It's
my whole
got to
thing
be,
is, we actually did
We
approve
usually
this.
know what we're doing.
Yeah, we actually did approve both, the GPS and the cameras, and the contract that you're gonna negotiate is gonna be for $4.50 per bus per day. And we've already approved the $4.
That's my understanding from the motion that was made
Yes.
last
Yeah.
time.
Right.
So
We
you're
just
not
need
trying to change that, you're just looking
We
to add
just
the 50
add,
cents.
I'm looking to add 50 cents to the to allow for, okay, I make a motion that we add 50 cents to the previous motion that would allow for the addition of the extra 2 cameras.
I think all you need to do is just make a motion to allow 50 cents per bus per day, to allow for the additional cameras. I don't think you have to amend last week's motion. I think we're
I don't
just
either.
looking for approval
No.
on this.
No.
But I think I wanna make it clear that it's for both.
Okay.
It's the $4 and the 50 cents. Is for, it's an additional, maybe it's not an amendment, but an
Mhm.
addition. So you got a number of them in there, Mrs. Moran.
I do.
Are you all set with that, Mrs. Moore?
Oh, yeah.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
I got a second by Stephen. We have discussed this quite a bit, so I think we're all set as far as going ahead and calling the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
We're unanimous, thank you.
And there's,
Anything else we can
if we're not
belabor?
quite done A and F yet, we have one more thing.
No.
As you know, we weren't sure whether or not Dunbarton had taken their rejection by the State Board of Education of not hearing the case against, the case with us again, and whether they had filed with the Supreme Court of New Hampshire. I believe they have. And it's been some kind of discussion or whether or not we should actually make it real easy. What are we doing? Well, we want to demand, maybe we should send a letter saying this is how much you owe us. And so that is the amount for discussion where we probably should send them that. Before I make the
Agreed.
motion, I wanted to get the feel for the board to find out if that's what we want to do or not.
Based on this inquiry, has admin reached out to legal counsel regarding the wisdom of this?
We have not. We have talked about it at the
However-
past.
Last discussion with council was, why not?
My understanding of the last discussion with council was no, but we need to think about it.
I thought about it. Just saying. Anybody
And I think
else?
we definitely need to explore, if it is the thing to do, we need to be considering doing it. But my number one question, not being a practitioner of law, is whether or not it's an advisable course of action to take, given our situation. Stephen?
Two thoughts. One, we really shouldn't discuss our discussions with counsel in the public meeting
Mm-hmm.
because of the attorney-client privilege. I don't think we have, but,
Making sure we don't
just
go
I'd
there.
throw that caution out
Yeah.
there. Why are we discussing sending the invoices now? What's the purpose? What are we trying to gain? I guess I'm not sure I see any harm in it, but I'm not sure I see any upside to it either. They filed their appeal, they're not just gonna pay. This process is gonna play out the way I see it right now, but if I'm missing something, I'm all ears.
Have we got, we haven't got a copy of the appeal. Oh, you do? Okay, that's for non-public. Then, it wouldn't hurt us to wait another meeting. And if we need to discuss this, as an ongoing litigation, that can be done in non-public.
I think we're wise to bring it
Okay.
into that venue, given the situation. Are you good?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
So we can move on to superintendent's report?
Just a few things this evening. You all may have noticed that we have a rather large amount of snow outside.
No, I didn't see it at all.
I'd like to thank the town. The Department of Public Works has done a really great job getting our roads clear. We've worked closely with them. We've been on the phone with them during storms, after storms, collaborating on school closures, collaborating on delayed openings. They've tried really hard to get our parking lots as clear as they possibly can. Mountain View right now is probably the worst parking lot just because, as Mr. Allard said, there's simply no place to put the snow. But we're working really hard on that. We've analyzed the snow loads on our roofs. There is a way that you can calculate what the weight of the snow is based on the density of the snow and the thickness. So Mr. Agate has done that, and at this point feels confident that all of our snow loads are within our roof capacities. We will continue to watch that. If we continue to get another 15 inches of snow a week, as we have for the last couple of weeks, we will perhaps be in a situation that we need to have further conversations. Removing snow right now from a roof is nearly impossible to find. So just wanted you to know that that's on our radar. We had talked in the past about pursuing a Homeland Security grant to look at a generator here at the high school. Mr. Agate has still been working on getting quotes on that. I'm hoping for our next meeting to have a number to bring forward for the board's consideration if we might want to pursue what is a 50-50 match. We also would hope to have a little more information in terms of the specs, but essentially what we're looking at right now is a system that would power the entire high school. So we would absolutely be able to have school here at Goffstown High School if we were in a no-powered situation. A couple of other things. I had the chance to go to Shrek the Musical this weekend. It was fantastic. If you're looking for something to do this coming weekend, it was fun, it was enjoyable. The kids did a great job, as they always do, and the team that puts the play on, Mr. DeRocher, Mr. McDermott, Mr. McKiernan, Ms. Philibot, they do an incredible job. So it was a really nice performance, and it was outstanding. We wanted to thank the FBLA for taking care of babysitting during deliberative session. Krista Scarlett and her group of students did a nice job, and there was a great article in the paper about that. Social media, I think Retta discussed, but I would encourage all of you who are in Facebook to like our pages, and you can follow. Each of our schools has the Facebook and Twitter accounts live and ongoing. I have been doing posts on those as well, which was new for me. We didn't discuss this. I know, Dan, we talked about it briefly. The Department of Ed has issued a technical advisory that there is no opting out of Smarter Balanced for any parent who wants to. So at this point, this is beyond school administration. This is the commissioner saying that there is absolutely no way for parents to opt out. We could talk about that, but at this point, we do know that some school districts have experienced parents presenting a written request or asking principals to sign off that their kids would not be part of the test administration. We can't legally do that. So we've been told rather definitively from the commissioner, anyone who has questions about this, I'm sending directly to the commissioner, because it's not us. So I wanted folks to be aware of that.
And if I may,
Please?
as I went further into trying to understand the complexities of what we talked about for parents who didn't want to do this, and I've got a copy of both technical advisories that the commission put out, one on January 13th and the other one that is dated January 26th. And if we can refer back to RSA 186.11, there's the part that's 9-C, Roman 9-C, is where we have a policy that allows exception to course material. Kind of say, and this is where it's a fine line. Is it course material? It's not course material, but it is material. And so I think at this point, the only way, if you don't want your child to take the test, don't send them to school. And then what the advisory says is, what do we do when a child doesn't come to school? Well, we mark them absent. I don't know if there's anything else we do.
Well, they've also told us that we are required to do makeups.
Guess you said child has to be sick 2 days.
Well, it's more than 2 days.
Is there anything, we have to do makeup. So what we have here is trying the power of the state trying to take over our children, and the power of the state trying to take over this local school board. Is that what's happening? So if this school board wants to take a formidable action and make a motion and pass it and say, stick it to you, State Department, we could do that if we wanted.
I would not accept that motion.
Hmm?
I would not accept that motion. So
Well,
you
I
guys would
wouldn't,
have
if
to
I
vote.
said a motion like that, I wouldn't say it that way. But
we've-
any motion properly placed would not be in the realm of a chair not to accept. But that's a different discussion and debate. And
Well,
I didn't say I would make it.
What we've heard is any districts that don't go forward with the testing, such as Manchester. Manchester was looking to see if they could not administer the Smarter Balanced Assessment, that they would jeopardize all federal funds.
Oh, that's hokey pokey, but that's just another one of those things that she does because she needs to make her money. She gets a paycheck. All right, I said it on camera. There it is. Okay, that was my piece on that.
Thank you. Moving on.
Just a few other things for the board. From a legislative perspective, there are about 70 bills right now that are working their way through the committee process in the House and the Senate that pertain to education. They run the gamut from things to abolish the Department of Education to Smarter Balanced, Common Core. There's a lot of activity, and if the board is interested, I know you all received the School Boards Association, I believe you all received the School Boards Association summaries. We'd be happy to send those along to you if you haven't gotten them. We are I wanted to let the board know that we are conducting a school climate survey with all of our staff in our 3 elementary schools. This is something that we've talked about doing for quite some time, and we're gonna be doing this spring. So we're gonna look at staff morale, we're gonna look at the school culture and climate in each of our elementary schools. Mountain View, we're not going to do this because I would like to re-administer the exact same questions from the West Ed study that we all, I'm sure, remember from several years ago. I would like to re-administer the exact same questions to our staff, to our students, and to our parents next year. That would give us an exceptional opportunity to look at how perceptions and the experience at Mountain View has truly changed over the last several years. So if the board's comfortable, that would be my approach, is next fall or at some time next year. And we're not gonna have anyone come in and do it, we would do it ourselves. We wouldn't need to do anything like that, but it would give us a very good read. And in terms of Goffstown High School is going to be up for self-assessment through the NEAS&C process, which is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. That's their accreditation, and there are all kinds of survey instruments and assessments that they have to do as part of that. So at this point, I wouldn't look to put anything additional on Goffstown High School. They're gonna have their hands full with their accreditation process. In defiance of the winter that we've had, this Friday will be Hawaiian Day in all of our schools.
Good idea.
No looking out the windows.
There is absolutely no looking out the windows. We're gonna find a little bit of slice of summer right here in Goffstown this Friday. Snow day count, 3 days canceled, 6 delays. At this point, I wanted to let you know that we've started conversations with our teachers union and support staff union, both in Goffstown and New Boston, to discuss talking about extending the school day, doing something a little more preemptively and earlier perhaps than we did last year. I would welcome any thoughts or feedback from the board in that capacity, but at this point, we're starting the conversation.
I think it's great you're starting the conversation. I think that's smart to do. So thank you.
Okay. Maple Ave boiler. Ray and I are most pleased to let you know that the Maple Ave boiler is waiting on one part. I don't know what the part is, but it's one little something that they are waiting on that's back ordered from the factory, and as soon as that part gets here, we will be live. It's completely installed. All the work has been done. The propane tank farm is done. The boiler is in place. They're just waiting on that one last little heating piece, whatever it is.
And the tanks are full.
I believe the tanks
Yep,
are
they
full.
are. They are
We
full.
filled them. Ray, do you remember what the piece was?
No.
I think it was
don't.
something to do with one of the
It was one of-
regulators or something.
Part of a
Yeah.
regulator assembly. I'm not sure which part of it.
Yeah, it's the important one, that's what we know.
Yeah.
And this evening on the agenda, under old business, we do have an update to Tibbetts Hill Road traffic situation. I discussed this with Chief Brown. He's not gonna be here this evening. This was a holiday for the town, and I told him that we'd be happy to have the conversation in 2 weeks.
4 weeks. That's
4
okay,
weeks.
yeah.
4 weeks. So that was all I had.
Thank you, Brian. So we'll move right on to old business B, deliberative session debriefing. Did anybody have anything that they wanted to share about deliberative? I mean, obviously it was very quiet. My takeaway from it, when we left that day, we had, if memory serves, 56 registered voters there. And it made me wonder if Saturdays weren't really working.
Did that include us?
Yeah, we're all registered voters, so,
48
well, then you
in the
figure
audience, or
all the people associated with town boards, and
Yeah.
your point is clear, there were
It's-
very
it's-
few people there who were not in some way connected directly to the process through their work on a town board or on our own board. But it was the same for the town deliberative session, which took place on Wednesday night. They had 64 registered voters, and again, the bulk of the audience was connected to the town board. we got great feedback on the award video, which Retta already shared. I thought that was very, very successful. Did you have anything you wanted to share, Retta?
I myself was really pleased with the videos because I thought it gave a great opportunity to not only recognize a person verbally, but show what it is that they were doing. And for those that weren't able to attend, it also gave them a glimpse into what is happening, not only in schools, but within organizations, because if they're not involved in the talking about it and reporting out about it, they may not see this. So I thought, as we're launching our social media initiatives, this is something that we can share, and I hope that we do it again in the future, because I called the school on another business item, and the person who answered the phone, "Oh, I saw you in the video," which to me said she watched it, and that's what we want. We want people to recognize the people that are being honored, so I was happy with that.
I think we should definitely do that again.
That was good, that was
Didn't-
good, that was good, that video, I thought that was excellent. That was very, very well done. Kudos to whoever thought of it and whoever put it together, well done.
Well, Adam put it together.
Well done.
That was Adam's genius
yes, he
right
did.
there. And if that wasn't an excellent example as to why he was the Dreamkeeper Award recipient, there never was a good example, I suppose, but,
If we're talking about the video of the deliberative sessions,
yes.
I just want to say that
No,
I don't
the award, the
think-
award, just the awards.
just the award.
The award video. That's what they're talking about.
We'll get to the
See what you
delivery.
wanna say, Jenny.
But carry on, Jenny, share your
Can
point.
I do
We are all
a
ears.
commendation, since I'm late, and I apologize for that? I have never in my life gone to a deliberative session where after the chair gave their speech, that every single question was answered, so nobody in the entire room had anything to add, ask. I thought she did like an awesome job. Awesome job.
Thank you.
No, really, because, I mean, nobody could think of anything that you hadn't already said, which I think
Very
is
well prepared.
amazing, amazing job.
Sadly, it took me a long time.
It showed,
Far much
bet
more
it did.
time than that 20-minute presentation probably should
but
have.
it showed, it
But it
showed,
was.
it really did.
Thank
Well
you.
done,
Amazing.
I
well
appreciate
done.
it.
And if I may, before the camera gets to your red face,
Sorry.
no, if we look at the small turnout, there's two things that happen. In my 12 years, I found this out. If you do a very controversial subject, you're gonna get a lot of people in attendance to those meetings. But if everything is going very well, and to boot that it was taped and people can watch it at will, then you're gonna have low attendance. So I don't look at the low attendance thinking anything different than we did a great job. There wasn't gonna be a lot of questions. There wasn't a lot of animosity going on anywhere. It's 100%, all of us voted to put that budget forward. And I can talk about the budget, the only article there, and 100% of the budget committee said, let's put this forward. So there wasn't anything, I think it was there. And when we got there, it was presented well. I did like the video for posterity of the awards as well, so I think it just to go show, I think it went very well this year.
I think we should continue with Saturdays. Like I said, like those few days after, I was like, oh, maybe we need to rethink this. But given the way the
How was the town
went to-
turnout?
64. So they,
It wasn't very large.
no, it was, I talked to Kathy Ball, and that was her count that night. So I think Saturdays still
It
continue
was more
to be,
controversial too, on a couple
yeah.
articles.
Right, the transportation. Does anybody else have anything they want to share about deliberative before I move on? All right, guys. School district calendar, second read.
You should have received in your packets 2 different calendars. One is the traditional 180-day calendar, and I am, if nothing else, persistent. The other calendar is the 182-day calendar. The only change that we've added since the last time the board saw the calendar is we took it upon ourselves to get the inside story from the Secretary of State's office. and we reached out to our distinguished colleague, Mr. Cloutier. At this point, we are noting that the primary will be in January. We don't know which day yet. We know it will be a Tuesday.
I've got I never said it would be in January.
Oh, here we go.
No, I think that's true, because it
All right.
could be in December, right?
I said the legislative date for a primary is town election day in March. Traditionally, every other state has wanted to opt, by the way, this is the 100-year
Yeah.
birthday
Yeah.
of the primary, so it's
A big deal.
a big deal, and you may have other states not wanting to compete so much, but we don't know.
It's possible that it could be in December, I think, as well.
They gave Secretary Gardner special authority 4 years ago to hold it in December, but the way it read was it needs to be in the year for which the general election is. So 2016 would be the time, but if anything happens, I'm sure the legislature would do whatever they need to do to maintain our first in the nation.
So at this point, we are anticipating that it will likely be on one of the first Tuesdays in January, but at this point, until the date is set, we don't know for sure.
Right.
We will publicize the date. We will be closed that day. There will be no chance of having school on the primary day. So at this point, no other real changes. Our first day of school would be September 2nd. Our last day of school would be June 17th. This maintains traditional February and April vacations.
And that's also the 182-day calendar.
Yep. The 180-day calendar, the first day would also be the 2nd, and the last day would be the 15th.
You know, I was thinking about this 180 versus 182, since we met last. And I really think the 182-day calendar, adopting that is a good conversation to have before you develop a budget and move it forward, because it does have an economic impact. And as much as it's not huge, it is still, if we adopted the 182 for this coming school year based on our budget calculations taking place fiscal year July 1st, we're already behind, based on what our calculations. That budget was formulated with the intention of a 180-day calendar. So that's my feeling, if we are gonna move to 182, that it's a conversation we have in June and make that determination. Dan?
Quiz for Superintendent Bulkey. We also need to reserve 10 extra days for snow days, whether it's 180 or 182, correct?
Correct.
Since the last day would be the 17th, and there are only 9 Monday through Fridays on the 182 calendar, where's number 10 gonna come from?
That is an exceptional question, Mr. Cloutier.
Aren't we gonna miss him?
Right.
The reality is, we would likely propose something to the commissioner, because the board will recall, we can set our calendar one of two ways, either based on days or based on hours. And if we did our calendar based on hours, we could cut probably the better part of 15 days off the school year.
Right.
Because we far exceed the number of minutes for the year that we're required to. So that would be something we would have to take a look at, Dan, and
Okay.
make sure that they would still approve it. Probably
I would say-
the easiest thing to do would be to just submit based on hours, and we would still have the same number of days. And you can actually, if you can believe it, you can change midstream if you so desire. So when we
Right, that's
talk
what they
about,
said.
when we talk
Yeah.
about snow days, for example,
Make-up days, yeah.
if there was not an interest in making up snow days, we have enough hours that we wouldn't necessarily have to. That's another conversation that brings up all kinds of other things, such as lost wages for all of our hourly people, including support staff. That includes paying teachers not to work. That includes other things that some folks might take exception with. But it is a good question, Dan, and we would probably need to look at that. Another option has been that we could look at Martin Luther King Day. I was interested in having a conversation around having school that day.
Right.
And truly having a school-wide focus on civil rights, which I think is something that we don't uniformly do now because it's a day off of school. So if we had school that day, that would take care of the 10 extra days. But point well taken. So I'd welcome any feedback, any thoughts?
Just a question. If we already are like 15 days longer, why do you think we should do the extra 2 days?
Because I think the standard's too low to begin with.
Okay.
And this is something that, it's really a personal belief of mine. I think
Okay.
the school year should be longer. I think the school day should be longer. I support, I think a lot of kids really struggle with the so-called summer slide. And having a summer that's really long is not great for kids. They get out of the routine of reading, they get out of the routine of school.
You know what? Can I just say something, because this is something I feel strongly about? I'm not sure that the school should make sure that they stay in the schedule of reading and stuff. You know, sometimes we take too much parental responsibility over to be our responsibility, you know, and I'm just throwing that out there as, you know, sometimes
Sure.
we're not the people that have to monitor kids reading and doing things, but sometimes you need to put it back and make sure parents are doing that, taking their kids on field trips and,
I don't
you know,
disagree.
making sure they read for 20 minutes every night, whether it's summer or winter, so. That's just a concern of mine sometimes about taking over that. And you've heard it from me before with
Sure.
the nutrition and, you know, whatever. Sometimes we just, you know, assume that we can fix families, and we really need, almost enable people sometimes when we take on too much of that stuff.
And really, those 2 extra days isn't going to do away with the so-called summer slide. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Yep.
But I do think additional days in school and being able to focus on teaching and learning is important for kids. But again, I hear your point, Diane, about the budgetary elements. I believe the back of the matchbook estimate was around $8,000 that Mr. Labor had done last year when we talked about this. It is unbudgeted, there's no question about it. If the board wanted to move forward with the 180-day calendar, I will stop bringing it up this year, and we will have the conversation at the budget table next year.
Even in June, before you even get to the budget table, are we doing 182 or not? And then you know to build your budget on 182,
I would probably just build it in,
you know?
and we would identify it as a separate cost, so that the budget committee and the board could see, here's the additional cost for the 182-day school year.
Anybody else? When do we need a final decision on this? Because we've now kicked it around for
We
2
have
meetings.
to, you can make the decision this evening if you'd like. New Boston is also still evaluating the calendar. They are not, however, having the 182-day conversation.
They're doing 180?
Their contract is set for
Oh.
180.
Mhm.
We need to have it submitted to the Department of Ed by April.
Are there any holidays or calendar stuff that puts us different than,
No.
okay?
The only thing
Boston's-
the only thing that's different are a couple of the teacher workshop days are a little different. So for example, the December 4th day, they don't have. And they start, their teachers start a day earlier, and their teachers end a day later. So their
Okay.
teachers have 2 extra days as teacher workshop days.
Okay.
But apart from that, the school days are identical.
Do we want to take this off our plate?
I think it'd be terrific if we could make a decision. Yeah.
I will make a motion, we adopt the 180-day calendar put before us this evening.
I have that motion. Do I have a second? By Ben. We've discussed it quite a bit. Any more before I call it? All in favor of approving the 180-day calendar?
Aye.
All right.
We're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to the program of studies. Some additional information was requested and provided.
I believe everyone received the information that was sent out.
Yep.
And primarily, there were questions around math-embedded courses at the high school and some of the changes that were made in the program of studies and approved by C&E. So at this point, we would be looking for the board's approval of the program of studies so we can go to print.
I'll make that motion to accept the programs of studies.
So I've got the
Were
motion.
there any corrections that were any discussion after the questions were answered? Okay. As presented.
Okay, got that motion from Jenny. Do I have a second? By Stephen. Any further discussion about this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're unanimous. Bartlett Portable.
Mr. Labor and I have been meeting with Mr. Agate and Mr. Bousquet. We have looked at a number of portable options. We don't have costs for you. We would hope at your next board meeting to have costs and schematics that you could look at. We have met with Lieutenant Connor, our fire inspector. We have looked at several options. At this point, if I can just give you a brief summary, and Ray, please jump in and provide any additional detail. The options that we're considering for Bartlett at this point, one is to add a second portable and to reconfigure the positioning. This was what we had talked about at our last meeting, and to look to see if we could tie in with almost like a covered walkway, a hallway, vestibule, so that kids could go from the 1922 section of the building out directly to the portables. That's one option. And there's a second option to take the existing portable, which I have the date is, the date of the portable is, at this point, on one of these papers, 16 years old. So the portable unit we bought brand new, the one that's at Bartlett currently. Another option would be to move that portable to Maple Ave. The portable unit that's currently at Maple Ave is considerably older and not in as good a shape, and we would be concerned about attempting to move that portable from a structural integrity perspective. But we considered taking the current Bartlett portable and moving it to Maple Ave. That would allow Maple Ave to reclaim their library, to put 2 fourth-grade classrooms in the portable. If we did that, we could look at what's called a double-double, which is essentially 2 portable units at Bartlett that are connected. And we'll have cost information for you, and we'll have schematics that you can look at your next meeting. But essentially, it would be a hallway off the back of the 1922 section that would go right out to the 2 units. And so we would need to purchase those 2 units and install them, and then move the current portable over to Maple Ave. The last piece of the project that we've looked at as an outcome of the Bartlett Space Needs Committee was looking at storage. So we have we're getting costs and conceptual drawings for a storage unit off the back of the gym. So the back of the gym is a pretty steep hill. This would include creating a retaining wall, raising that level, that grade up, and putting a pretty good-sized unit off the back of the gym, and then looking to saw cut and put 2 sets of fire-rated doors that would go directly from the back of the gym into the storage unit. That would allow us to keep any kitchen equipment, phys ed equipment, paper supplies, and the like. Everything would be out in that storage unit. And we would pick up about 4 parking spaces, because we would take that hill and make it usable space, which would allow us to add additional spots at the bottom. So at this point, we have no numbers to talk about with you. We don't have them. We've been working with Arbor Construction, who is the company that's doing the portable unit in New Boston. There aren't a lot of companies out there that do this type of work, and we're looking at used or new portable units from a company in Maine called Skiavi. So at this point, we have been in contact with the building inspector, we've been in contact with the town, the different folks in the planning office, and we hope to have, I think, everything pulled together for 2 weeks.
Right.
Anything to add, Ray?
Other than the courtesy presentation to the town, to give them a feel for what it's going to look like, what we're doing, and determine if there's any special planning considerations we need to take into account to satisfy town codes.
Okay. Yeah.
The double-double wouldn't be an L shaped, it would be just an I shape.
It would be a large rectangle.
Right.
It would be
And-
2 units with a hallway going straight out. So if you're thinking about the back of the 1922 section,
And how-
you would go straight, and the units would be right there.
10 feet away or
Yep.
20, whatever it is, which would then still give us enough room to get behind them and onto the other side of the building, and it wouldn't encroach on the passageway out the exit.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Seriously, we have enough room for that back there?
We believe we do. We would sprinkler the units,
Right.
which I think is a good thing to do anyhow.
And the kids would hang up their coats and they could,
Yep.
it would be, yes.
And so some of the elements, when you connect to an existing masonry structure, there are fire code requirements that we've been working with Lieutenant Connor on in terms of fire-rated materials, doors, egress, et cetera. We're having discussions about, do we want to put a bathroom in there? Do we not want to put a bathroom in there? If we put a bathroom, we have 2 options. We could tie into the sewer line directly out back by Higgins Street. We could go back into the building. So we're working on all those kind of logistical elements. Space-wise, Ray, wasn't it just shy of 4,000 square feet?
Right.
Which is pretty nice. That's a pretty considerable amount of space for us to consider at Bartlett. And do you remember the dimensions of the storage unit? It was the entire length of the gym by about maybe 20
20
feet.
feet, right.
Well, that is
So it's
Good
big.
size.
20, that's about
It's
20
big.
by 30,
Right.
about 600.
We'd have 3 bays,
Yeah.
3
It's
separate
big.
bays.
Okay.
Yeah.
The double-double, I take it as like 4 classrooms would
Yes.
be in it, and that would be like air-conditioned and ventilated and all that,
It would.
as they would, okay.
And it would be great space to use for summer program.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't have enough air-conditioned space in our schools for our summer programs.
Okay. So when do you think you'll have numbers?
We think we'll have numbers within a week.
Okay, so they are
They're-
forthcoming.
They're
fairly.
forthcoming, and in fact, did we have a I can't remember if we had another meeting scheduled, but everyone knows that our goal would be to bring numbers forward 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
Just to at least, because we're not entirely sure yet what the cost of this so-called double-double would be.
Okay.
One further question.
Mm.
Where would the new, because if you're not gonna move the old portable at MAS, that's gonna stay there.
It's gonna stay where it is.
Where would the 16-year-old portable go?
Great question. It would go out back,
Yeah?
and actually we'll come to you with schematics so you can see where on the plot plan it is.
Okay.
But basically, if you think about the big open courtyard around the back of Maple Ave,
Yeah.
it would be kind of by the slope. There's a slope that comes off the classrooms that are on the front part of the gym. It would be right there. And we would need to have a ramp, so it would be handicap accessible that would go right to that side door.
Okay. And would we also be able to tie that in?
We believe we would be able to tie it in as
with
well.
an enclosure?
Well, we've talked about a couple of different options. We talked about a covered,
Yeah?
but no walls on the sides.
Okay,
And we talked about sort of a fence arrangement that would
okay.
Right.
For
keep the
either-
corral, keep the kids in and the dogs out and the
Okay.
like.
Okay.
But we're
Early stages.
not quite there yet, but we hope to be there within 2 weeks.
The cost for the portable to be put at Maple Ave isn't covered under the current Bartlett Elementary School's
Capital Reserve
capital
Fund?
reserve fund. Is that a correct statement?
Um, You mean the actual moving of it?
Moving of the old portable and tying it into Maple Lab,
I would think that would not be within the scope of the
Correct.
capital reserve
So
fund.
we're gonna get costs that are separate, because one, we would have to bear out of
Well, but we also have impact fees.
fees.
So we have
The impact fees could be used as well.
$397,000 of impact fees.
Cool,
So we think we could,
okay, get her done.
Yep.
All right.
Okay,
so more to come.
thank you. Back to audio and video on the school buses.
Okay. You should have received a copy of our current policy, which is ECAF. This speaks to the requirements, and Mr. Cloutier, do you want to frame why we're talking about this?
I can. What I did was, I came upon the wiretapping and eavesdropping RSA, and not knowing much about the history of what had been done with the policy and not perusing through the policies first, I sent a request to Diane and Brian to see if we could talk about if there's something that this group had to do prior to implementing the audio capability on the school buses. Because they talk about it's a permitted activity, but there's certain things we have to do, like have a public hearing. That was the big thing. You have to have a policy, which would have gonna be an easy thing to do, but the public hearing a little more needy to do. And that's the frame of where I wanted to go, and whether or not that public hearing had occurred, and if it had occurred around the time the policy had occurred, is that 5 years ago, and was that too far away because we never implemented it? And I'm presuming we implemented ECAF because it was one of those school board association things that came down and said, by the way, you gotta have a policy. Segue.
Well, we already have cameras. We already have audio and video recording happening on all of our buses.
We do.
We do. The camera system that we're proposing is a better camera system, and it would replace our old cameras. Right now, we have one camera at the front of the bus,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Okay.
So this new camera model that Ray showed the photos earlier is just it's a better model. I mean, even if you look at the photos, we've never had that kind of functionality in the past.
Okay.
So Dan, we've always done
Okay.
this.
Okay.
I can't speak to whether the public hearing happened when the policy was made. We would need to go through the archive and confirm that that happened.
I believe we
Mr.
did.
Allard would have been the chair at the time, so
Okay.
you may remember that, Keith.
Okay.
But, Dan, just in terms of what do we do, the bus company can't view any videos without seeking our permission. So what happens right now is the bus company will call and say, there was a behavioral incident on a bus between this student and this student, morning run on February 16th, and we would like to review the video. What we do is they call for every single request, and by the way, we don't get very many of these.
Okay.
So we only look at the video if there has been some kind of a situation that occurs. And I'd say 95% of the time, we send one of our administrators from the school to the truck center to watch the video with the truck center. So they watch it together, and they say, okay, there's Brian Balke on the bus, and he's up out of his seat, he threw something. Hypothetically.
Shame on him.
Shame on him. But so that's what we currently do, Dan. They keep, the policy says we can keep, I think, 10 days. We typically, I think it's only a week that the DVRs store, and I think they delete them
Okay.
afterwards. But we are diligent about making sure that we do comply with this process. The new cameras will be a much more effective tool, particularly the so-called back of the bus cam, which I'm rather excited to have.
I just have a question. I'm looking at these different views that the cameras show. Is the bus driver able to see these? Or
No.
are they just on?
They're not allowed to.
Okay, because I was
Yeah.
thinking, this is an awful lot of places for a bus driver to be.
No,
In
there's-
addition to try to
To-
drive.
yeah.
There's no monitor
Okay.
of any sort, so no one can see. The only way that this gets viewed is if something occurs, the truck center goes and pulls the hard drive off the bus, they bring it into the office, they hook it up to the computer, and they queue it up.
Okay. I just thought this was a lot of places for the
No,
bus
they
driver to
can't,
be
they can't look
looking.
at it. And you'll also see, like, for example, if you look at the bottom left, that's like midway back.
Yeah.
That's like a mid-bus camera. That's fantastic. Because typically, all you see is, if you look at the top left, you just see the, particularly for little kids, you kind of just see the top of their heads. So I think this is really good, and it's important for safety. It's important to make sure that nothing inappropriate's happening on our buses.
Are we in a good place?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Moving on to new business, Lionsfield.
Lionsfield, Mr. Labor and I met with Scott Gross, representing the Lions Club, and our current contract with them goes through June. So we are getting out ahead of this before we get too much closer to June. They have a couple of requests that I wanted to bring to the school board. One is they would like the school district to do the fertilizing schedule for the so-called upper field, which is the field that's used by Tri-Town. In the past, Tri-Town has done the fertilizing. The Lions Club asked us to do the fertilizing and to bill Tri-Town. I think they want to make sure that it happens on the same frequency schedule as the fertilizing of the baseball field. So at this point, we have not engaged in a conversation with Tri-Town. We wanted to bring it to the board to get feedback from you this evening. We will then follow up with Tri-Town. I wouldn't imagine Tri-Town would have any issue with that. They're paying for this, it's the same cost. It would just make sure that the scheduling of it would be consistent with the other field. Secondly, they would like us to make a formal request of the Board of Selectmen to send trash trucks down to get recyclable units and waste units. They currently are not sending a trash truck down there because they believe, and this goes into the third item, tree trimming, that there are some trees that need to be pruned and that the garbage trucks wouldn't fit down there. So if the board is comfortable with this, we would work with the Lions Club to do the trimming, and then we would make a request of the Board of Selectmen to pick up trash containers down there. Because currently they don't.
What happens? Somebody privately needs to come get it, or?
Well,
That's what the current arrangement is,
Yeah,
private hauling.
okay.
No, I go down there frequently, and I've noticed a lot of garbage, and
Yeah.
it doesn't get emptied on a regular basis, and it's blowing all over the place.
so I think this would allow us to take better care of it.
And it really is a community center, so it would make perfect sense for the town to,
We would agree.
Frank's pretty handy with the chainsaw, I see,
Okay. So there's tree trimming that needs to be done, so do we have people on staff who can do that, or?
Probably not.
No,
We would
but
have to
I think the
hire-
Lions were gonna participate in this piece of it.
Okay, so there's more
Yeah.
details?
Yeah.
Okay.
We might have to bring in a tree company to do some of the trimming, but at this point, I think Scott's thinking was, a couple of guys on a Saturday with a couple of chainsaws and some ladders and just get it cleaned up.
All right, so not really a cost to the district necessarily?
I
just-
would say probably not very much, minimal if anything.
Do we have similar issues with the other field space that we use? And I'm just thinking across the board, I'm like, all right, so we're looking at focusing on Lions Field. Are any other spaces, do we have situations that,
We did extensive work last year on the baseball field at Mountain View. We did a ton of trimming. We had fences repaired. We just have done a lot of work on that field. That was our big focus last year. The baseball field had fallen to a bit of disrepair and needed a considerable amount of work. Our other fields, despite the fact that they're heavily used because we have limited field space, they do pretty good. All things considering without irrigation and the like, so they all look pretty good.
all right, does anybody have anything to
Yep.
add, what do you got, Dan?
We signed an agreement/contract with Lions what is it, a year, 2 years ago? And,
A year ago, yeah.
yeah, what were the stipulations of, I'm circling back to the field fertilization and the way the money is gonna change hands. In there, if I recollect, there was a stipulation for us renting out to Lions. We get the whole thing, or we were the custodians of the whole thing, and then,
We have a
I
s-
said the Lions, not the Lions, but the
Tri-State.
Tri-State.
No, it's, we have a second letter, an MOU, if you will,
Yeah.
with Tri-Town.
Yes.
And what it says is that fertilizing and it could be aeration, it could be liming, whatever treatments the fields need, that they would do them. What the Lions Club is asking us to do is to make sure that these different steps are happening and on the same timing as the baseball field. They want us to do it and invoice Tri-Town.
Right, and I'm wondering if our current contract and MOU with Tri-Town allows that to happen, or is,
This would be a change,
Would have to be revised.
right, so we're gonna have to revise it
revise it.
anyhow.
Yes.
okay.
And we haven't talked to them. I wouldn't imagine it's one less thing that they need to schedule. It would just happen for them, and then they would get a bill from us.
Right.
And you have no concerns, Ray, of the time that it would take you to, or your staff to do whatever it needs to do? Yeah, okay.
Would it be the board's pleasure then for us to reach out to the Board of Selectmen about trash pickup?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll see if I can-
And that would be for, and the thing about the trash pickup, for our kind of stuff, it's good. The Tri-Town is a not-for-profit, non-school related. That would be something that, I guess they would consider. But then if you look at the town warrant, it's not the first time the town has supported those kind of things, but that was the other piece. I'm looking for town in recycling pickup for what we use. I'm not gonna ask on behalf of Tri-Town.
The reality is, it's a community space. I mean, it's used by
Agreed.
so many
Yeah.
different
Agreed.
organizations, and there's a trash issue. Go ahead.
And-
And, you know, a big thing that I think in if it's a community place and we're having other towns come there, looks really bad when there's rubbish around and it's junky looking. So I think it does well for our kids in our community if we take care of the space properly, you know.
We're all set? Anybody else? Okay. You guys good with
We're
what you
good.
need?
Ray?
We are.
Okay.
All right, so we have, this is a new out-of-state, this is a new field
This
trip?
is a new one, and that is not a typo. It is the Lowell Boot Museum, and Mrs. Moran did confirm that is the correct spelling, because I was concerned there were probably one too many T's in there is what I was looking at, but that is the spelling. The fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Rhines and Mrs. Ward, are looking to go to the Lowell Boot Museum to focus on immigration and the Industrial Revolution. This is a hands-on experience. There are 41 students and 11 chaperones that will be going on this.
Is this the same Millyard Museum
I
that the
believe-
kids have always gone to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's a national
Yeah.
park, right,
It is
isn't
a
it?
national park.
National
It's-
park.
It's very cool.
It's a very cool field trip I've been on in the past.
I guess the question is if this is a repeat field trip or not.
It's new.
This is new. So it will require a motion for approval.
Motion to allow Bartlett to go to the Lowell Boot Museum.
By Ginny, do I have a second? By Ben? Any further discussion?
I have a question, or a couple
Yeah?
questions. It says cost of trip admission $390, method of payment, does that say 390 student contribution?
It does.
Is that $390 of student maybe that's what it means,
You
it's
know,
not a count.
the three
I
is
don't see the
written
dollar
over
sign.
the dollar
Yeah,
sign.
I see it now, okay.
Yeah.
It says approximate $350 and,
And 200 coming from PTA.
so the difference is coming from,
PTA.
No, PTA is just giving 200, so he's asking about the $150 balance, which will probably
I'm guessing the 150 is what's coming from the kids,
Yeah, sometimes they have.
so it's maybe like $4 a kid kind of deal.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that on the form. It would have said it above it. But the 2015-16 budget has transportation money in it, and my question was, is that gonna be tapped, or is it really students? That's,
We couldn't tap that until July
Yeah.
1.
oh, when's this gonna happen?
February 19th, this Friday.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, if we give them permission to go.
So is there any transportation money in this year's budget?
There is.
I think we've identified 350 for transportation from
Okay.
the budget.
That little, like,
Okay.
emergency fund that they,
So it's likely the budget is gonna pay for the difference. Okay.
anybody else have any other questions? All right, we've got a motion to approve, it's been seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
We're unanimous, tell them to have a good time,
Thank you.
be safe. And then we have, this is the repeat trip for, going to New York City for
This-
high school students?
This is a repeat trip. Mr. Romaine has taken for the last 7 years kids to New York City and to tour the United Nations. These students are part of a Great Decisions class. This year, he's looking to take 110 seniors, and they would be going, leaving at 5 a.m. from the high school and returning that evening around midnight. I actually think the date might have changed on this. Is this the revised date by chance, Denise? I would ask if the board's in favor of this, don't include the date, because Mr. Romaine, I saw him at Shrek on Saturday, and he told me that there was conversation with the United Nations, and they required him to change the date. I don't know why.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's the wrong day.
Okay.
I think we're going earlier than that.
Okay, I think it's like a week earlier
Yeah.
or a week later, because there was something happening at the United Nations, and they couldn't do the tour.
Yeah, I think it's a week earlier than that date. But
So it sounds like, this is a great opportunity for our kids. The cost is $13 that the kids pay as the entrance fee into the United Nations. And students pay $50 for the bus as well.
And honestly, too, where it's a repeat trip, we don't need a motion unless somebody would like to try for them to not go.
Great job.
All right,
Okay.
guys, have a good time. Brian, we have a parent request.
We do, and if it's the board's pleasure, I would like to give you some general details about this without any student-specific information.
Yes, please, because we're in public.
If the board had additional questions or information that you'd like, we could discuss this further in non-public. The short version is we have a student at Bartlett, and the family is moving. They're moving over school vacation week next week, and they are requesting for the child to remain at Bartlett for the remainder of the school year.
Are they moving in town or out of town?
They're moving out of town.
Which community? Is it a nearby community or?
It's a nearby community.
Typically, our practice is April vacation or after.
This is longer than I think has been your past practice.
I'll make a motion that the child may stay, but they have to pay the tuition rate after 30 days. Because usually we give 30 days grace on something like that.
Could you help us with the tuition rate?
Whatever our standard tuition rate is for elementary school, it's 8,000 and change, I think, right now. More.
We don't have a tuition rate for our elementary schools, however, the cost per pupil
Okay.
is in excess of $11,000.
All right, at cost per pupil prorated, let me change the motion. to be
Minus 30 days.
Minus 30 days, yep. I mean, are there any extenuating circumstances that we should consider in non-public regarding the student?
No?
Okay, that'll be my motion.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
I guess I kind of have a question, or just for discussion. If we already have the teacher in place, we've already have paper and textbooks and stuff for the child for the year, is it still our choice to have them pay for that much time? Because that would be like 3 months.
We have a problem with precedent setting.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a lot of, we've had issues in the past where you have students that move over the line into Manchester or other school districts, continue to attend here and everything. My concern would be precedent setting on the fact that you do it once, well, why can't you do it the other time? Are you being discriminatory, you know?
Ben?
Well, also, just, something to be considered too is transportation is to be provided by the parent, by the
Yeah.
parent or the family. I think that if that's part of if the maker of the motion would accept that.
Not part of the school district's
Not
responsibility.
part of the school district's responsibility, so.
I would glad to amend my motion to say, with parents providing all transportation.
So Keith has amended his motion to, cost per pupil prorated less 30 days in addition to parents provide transportation. I still don't have a second. Ben?
I'll second.
Ben has a second. Do we have any other conversation? Heather?
I agree with what Jenny's saying. I mean, the student is already here. We've already budgeted for them, right, to the end of
But-
June. So, I mean, I understand paying tuition, but I don't feel that they should pay for something that's already been. Hey.
They're not
Mm.
entitled to that
Here,
once
I've
they
got-
leave out of the community.
I've got the
But it's
opposite for that
already-
one. Let me help you on that one if I may. Okay, so that child is left, which leaves a building or an apartment or a house available. Now,
Right.
what happens if a first grader moves into that building and needs a spot in a space in the Goffstown school? That's the other side of that we have to consider as well.
It's two sides, absolutely.
Yeah. And so the stuff that we've already purchased would go to that other student who moves in
What grade is that student?
first.
First grade.
First.
Ben?
And I would agree with Keith that it is precedent setting if we do something like this for one, or we're just putting a little crack in the door, and before you know it, you're gonna have a whole herd coming through.
I agree. I mean, it is precedent setting, because as it was, as soon as this came forward, what did we say? Our past practice is
Mhm.
April vacation forward.
Doesn't hurt to ask, but
The other thing is let's not forget that we have more kids in Bartlett right now than we did a year ago. So our Maple Ave in Bartlett, we've seen a slight increase from last year. So we're tight at Bartlett. And, kids move all the time.
You know, I mean, I personally, obviously you take into effect, you're moving, what it causes for your kids. And that has to be part of your decision-making, whether you move out of a community or not. If I decided to move out of the community tomorrow, I wouldn't expect this community to continue to pay for the education of my 3 children. It's not something I would expect.
All right, guys, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
You as well, Jenny?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are unanimous. And we just have some notifications.
We do. Can you send the sheet around? This evening, we have a leave of absence. This is just a notification for Mr. Jasper from the high school, beginning in February. And the second one listed, I'm sorry, I'll wait till everyone gets your sheet. At the time that we were putting this agenda together, we had not yet received a request from Mr. Perrin. We have since received a request for a 1-year leave of absence for him for next school year. So if the board is amenable to that, we would need a motion on this.
Can you refresh my memory? When we grant a leave of absence, a long term like this, it is unpaid, correct?
It is unpaid.
But we commit to them being able to have their position back
Precise.
the year they return. or
Precisely
when they return.
correct.
Okay.
How about benefits? Like,
No benefits.
okay.
No benefits. He did submit a letter to me. I think this is a good thing for Mr. Perrin. He's a good man and a good teacher, and I would encourage the board to support this.
What is he, I recognize the name, but I can't,
He was our
He
school
was
board
our
rep.
school board rep.
okay.
the high
That's
school.
what I'm saying, I
You
recognize
know
the
Sam.
him, yeah.
Sam, okay.
Sam.
Yeah. I think it's a huge loss for us for a year, but if it's good for him and he'll come back, I'm good with it.
Wanna make a motion? Cause we need it for that one.
Okay. I will, make the motion to grant Sam a, leave of absence for 2015-16 school year. And
Sorry.
hope that he comes back.
So I have that motion, do I have a second? Ben's got the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're unanimous on that. The other leave of absence is just a notification, we don't need a motion on that.
On Jasper? Nope.
Yeah, okay. Which brings us to long-term substitute?
Long-term substitute, Christina McLaughlin, will be going out any day now, based on the last time I saw her. So we wish her well, and we have a sub ready to go. That's Ashley Austin. I do have Ashley's materials if folks have questions, but we would look to have her in place. Secondly, congratulations to Jessica Murray, track change, bachelor's 15 to master's.
Good.
And then we
Can you
have,
send a card?
we
on our
we
behalf?
already, I
Thank
believe,
you.
have. And then we have student observers coming in from St. A's. And we have Abigail Presby coming to the high school. Shayna Varela going to Bartlett, and Danielle Dulong going to Bartlett. So, great for them. They'll have a great experience in the Goffstown schools, and we continue to love our affiliation with St. A's, as evidenced by 2 students in the audience this evening. That would move us along to resignations. Mark Boucher has resigned as a special ed teacher from Mountain View.
Do we know what?
Let me see if he. He didn't say.
Okay.
He says he's enjoyed his 3 years here and is moving on.
Do you do, exit interviews?
Kate? Kate does?
Kate does, me too.
Kate does?
Okay. We need a motion to accept.
Yep.
Make the motion to accept, Mark Boucher's resignation effective June 30th, 2015.
By Ginny, do I have a second? By Heather, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. And then we also have a co-curricular.
Co-curricular resignation for Scott Turgeon, which is a booster-funded position, boys JV lacrosse. And it was just an email that he's not able to coach this year.
Okay,
He's moving to Massachusetts and won't be able to do it.
makes it hard.
Yep.
I need a motion. Jenny, do I have a second? Stephen, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. We've got some nominations.
We have a teacher nomination for Diane McCain at the high school. This is covering a maternity leave, I believe, so this will be social studies and special ed for the remainder of the school year.
Okay.
So moved.
By Keith, second. Heather, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
For sports, we have, would you like me to do these individually, or as a,
I mean, obviously, we need to treat them as individuals, but I think we
A lot of new
can
ones, huh?
likely
We've got some new
do
ones.
them as a group
Okay.
unless anybody has questions or objections as we go forward.
well, Mr. Fountain has been busy, and we're very pleased to see that hiring 5 new coaches for the spring is really quite a bit of work. So Steve does a great job. He will be very present. He will watch the coaches, he will critique the coaches, give the coaches feedback. And it's also important for the board to recall that at the end of the season, all of our student athletes complete an evaluation of their coaches. That is something that we implemented this year at Mountain View as well. So every student athlete we have has the opportunity to provide feedback directly to the athletic department and to their coaches. That is a practice I would like to see at some point move into the classroom. Editorial comment. So you've got.
great idea.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Affirmative.
And, you know, again, I think it's important for administrators to receive feedback from teachers and support staff on their evaluations. I would include myself in that, so that's a model that we're talking about moving forward, but I digress. So we've got a whole series. Do you want me to read these and try to not massacre all these names?
Absolutely.
Okay, we've got Molly Ebitson for girls lacrosse, Angelina Labrod for JV lacrosse. That's a booster-funded position. Ryan Lang for boys baseball as a volunteer.
Basketball.
Basketball, thank you, good catch. Melanie Margaretson for boys volleyball as a volunteer. Mr. Mark Maraska for Mountain View baseball. Dave Smith, girls lacrosse at Mountain View, that is a booster-funded position. And Travis Silva at the high school for JV baseball as a volunteer.
Steve has been busy because girls lacrosse coaches are in high demand. They are very.
They're hard to find. Lacrosse is hard to find.
Does anybody have any questions about these? Seeing none, all in favor of approving?
Aye.
We're unanimous. You're absolutely right, I skipped a step. Would anyone like to make a motion? Nobody moved them.
I'll make the motion.
I just
to
skipped straight to
move-
calling the vote, so I got
move the
Jenny,
list of
Keith,
co-curriculum.
all in favor. We're
Aye.
unanimous, thank
Good job,
you.
Mrs. Moran.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore, for keeping me where I
She's sitting
need
there
to
just
be.
waiting to type the names in so I can see it on her
Hello.
face.
Well, you know, it's funny, because as soon as I called, I was like, wait a second. All right then, any other business that may legally come before this meeting?
Can I just ask
Oh.
a question? I apologize because I wasn't here, but, update to Tibbettsville, road traffic.
Yeah.
The,
We didn't get there
We did-
because, Chief, it's a holiday for Chief Brown, so he wasn't able to attend tonight, so we skipped it.
I would love, especially in, I live off of Tibbettsville Road, but not just for myself, I know it's an issue. Especially in the snow, it is really hard to get out in the morning, at school time, because, you have to make sure you have enough time to get out of there, and the traffic from, the village into Manchester is just nonstop. And so it's like, I would almost rather see the roundabout there, honestly, instead of where it is. And I'm wondering if, like, even,
Too late.
yeah, I know it, and I'm not particularly crazy about them either. But I'm wondering if we could at least have like a crossing guard sort of person, like they have
those
at
are
the
all the things
library.
that the chief is gonna come talk to us
Okay.
about. So we've talked about, a light that could be a blinking red and a blinking yellow, and then during the high traffic times would actually be an active, green, yellow, red traffic light. We talked about the crossing guard. The crossing guards are not for traffic detail, according to the chief. They're to help children across the street.
You'd have to
I-
pay for an
There's
officer.
there's no crossing there.
Again, we can talk about it when the chief
Yeah.
comes. It
Okay,
won't be in
I'm
2 weeks,
sorry.
it'll be in 4.
And my apologies, we should have removed it from the agenda.
Okay.
You know how hard it is to get a light here in town.
And the traffic situation there is not great. I mean,
It's-
anyone who's left Mountain View during peak pickup time, it's
Yeah.
pretty backed up.
And
I
sometimes,
feel bad for people who live on that street.
sometimes you wait forever because, you know, they're waiting up the hill for the kids to get in the car and to come down. So sometimes you're just like, just sitting there waiting for a kid to hop in a car and for the car to come down the hill again.
Well,
You know,
and the board will,
everyone's just-
the board will recall, we had extensive conversations to see if we could put a secondary access road in or out of Mountain View. These are all the reasons. I mean, besides the emergency vehicles, it's, the traffic in and out of that campus is difficult.
Thank you. I'm
You're
sorry.
welcome. No, it's all good. All right, we do have some non-public this evening, so I'll entertain a motion to enter into non-public pursuant to RSA 91A:3, Roman 2, subsection C, matters which if discussed in public would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body, and D, consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property. So those are our two discussions tonight. I think we'll do it for minutes and sealing purposes, one at a time. So if I can grab a motion for subsection C, I would be very happy. By Dave, do I have a second? By Keith, roll call?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. All right, so we're officially in non-public.